Well, Joe, it is a great time for hairy men in Hollywood
You bet.
because Christopher Nolan is casting the Odyssey. And I'll tell you what, from what I've seen from some of these fellas getting cast, if you want a spot on Odysseus's ship, if you want to hang with the big man, you gotta have some Sons of Anarchy ass looking facial hair.
Okay,
from
cool.
what I'm seeing, yeah, you really gotta have the braided beard,
Nice.
the shaved on the sides, but then really long in the back. You
cool.
gotta look like
Well, look,
you're in the
You gotta be on a boat for 20 years, right?
Yes.
Isn't that what the deal is?
Yes.
They're just running around.
Yes.
They didn't land on Barber Island, They're landing on dangerous places. And
Dangerous
such. You got to look
terrain.
wild
That's
to
right.
fight wild.
Wild boys. It's a good time for wild boys. And it's a good time for a lot of other people too, because this cast is massive per a Christopher Nolan movie. And what I wanted to do, Joe, since this is the big every week, it feels like there's new updates about the Odyssey casting and this and that. Free publicity. Nolan's got to love it. I'm sure he's keeping track of what all the trades are saying about the casting. I wanted to run you through some confirmed casting, some rumored casting, and I want you, in your infinite wisdom, as the Philly movie freak, to give us an old grade, like an old, like you're a teacher in school, just A through F, A+ through F-, I guess, if we're getting creative with this.
I would have been a terrible teacher.
Well, let's see. Let's see what you let's see, because you're a great
grader.
Yes,
but a great grader.
You're a really good grader.
Okay,
you're a really good
yeah,
grader.
right.
So of
Give
course,
me a TA.
starting off, we've got the big man himself, Matt Damon as Odysseus. What do you think? What do you give that casting?
B-.
Yeah.
Because it's not creative, but I'm sure it'll be okay. So as far as casting goes, B-, just for a little uncreative. But I'm maybe a B.
And it's one of those things where B- is almost an A, because it's like,
right.
You think Nolan's gonna take a risk with Odysseus? He's like, let me just lock in. I know Damon will be solid.
No, yeah, and he will be, and
he'll be solid.
and we'll all be grateful it's Damon when we're watching the movie. I bet, but B-.
I like that. Now, what about Tom Holland as Telemachus? Telemachus is Odysseus' son, who's back in Ithaca trying to keep the suitors away from his mother, waiting for the return of his father. Telemachus, Tom Holland.
C+, because I haven't seen it from Holland yet. I guess he has the juice. He's Telemachus in Nolan's Odyssey movie, but it doesn't make me excited. It doesn't make me excited, and it's just not creative or exciting. But again, I think this movie's going to be amazing, right? I'm a huge Christopher Nolan fan. I'm just saying C+. What about you?
I agree. This feels strategic to just get some juice in an insignificant role. Telemachus is like a nothing character in the Odyssey. He's just
you think this is all just a ploy to get Zendaya on the program?
I think so. To get Zendaya and just to get. There's a lot of Tom Holland fans out there. All the Spider-Man fans are now like, oh, what's the Odyssey? This is a book. What's a book? And so I think it's a way to get some of the kids on board. Who gives a shit who Telemachus is? It's just Odysseus' fail son who's running around Ithaca. All right. Now, speaking of Zendaya apparently is going to be Athena, one of the gods.
Oh, cool.
Because we got gods. The way they used to do this, they'd have Laurence Olivier up in heaven with a chessboard.
Cool.
I don't know how Nolan's going to do it, but what do you think
awesome.
about Zendaya as Athena, who's Odysseus' protector, the god that protects Odysseus?
If she has more than 2 lines, looking at you, Dune, then I give it an A. A for Athena Zendaya. A. But you got to give her lines.
Now, what about let's see what we got. What about this? Now we're getting good. As Circe, who's the witch who turns Odysseus' men into pigs.
Yeah, I love that.
Charlize Theron. What do you think about Charlize Theron as Circe?
Giving beautiful witch, which is always scary. I'm gonna give it an A-.
Ooh, A-. A- for Charlize Theron as Circe. What about Anne Hathaway as Penelope, the dutiful wife?
A fucking plus. Nolan casting his muse Anne Hathaway in another movie. A plus. Anne Hathaway's an Eagles fan. A plus. Anne Hathaway looks beautiful. A plus.
But you wouldn't want to have her in a more fun role than the. Do you think? Because at first I was like, oh no, they gave Anne Hathaway the boring character. But then I'm like, oh maybe
they gave her loyal wife.
But so they have something fun in mind. They have like a trick up their sleeve.
A.
Yeah.
Odysseus has to want to get back to her really bad.
Good point.
So Anne Hathaway.
Good point.
Okay.
Good point.
Number 2. what sort of like sexual games is Nolan playing with his wife Emma in some sort of sexy Black Bag-esque high-powered
We'll talk
Hollywood
about Black
thing?
Bag, by the way.
Some sort of high-powered Hollywood thing where it's like, oh, well, Anne could play dutiful wife really well. And Emma was like, fuck you. And he's like, but she would, wouldn't she? And Emma, being a great producer, is like, I can't say no to you, but I know what you're doing, Chris. What the fuck, man?
And this
That kind
role,
of thing.
this same character was just played by Juliette Binoche in The Return. So there's a high bar.
Yeah.
And I know Nolan is quaking in his boots when he
About
saw The Return.
Yeah.
Oh, how am I going to top this steaming pile of shit?
There was one producer that was like, when he was putting Odyssey in the pipeline, was like,
Do we think maybe
just want to
there's
flag
a potential
that.
problem here?
Just want to flag.
There was an email that went out that no one responded to that said,
Just want to
potential problem with The Return?
Yeah, no problem.
Everyone said, no, there's no problem. There's no problem with that. Now, this is interesting. One of the side stories in the Odyssey is Agamemnon, who's the leader of the Greeks at Troy. He gets to just go home. He doesn't have to do the big Odyssey.
Right.
But then when he gets home, he gets murdered by his wife, Clytemnestra, and her lover.
These are great stories.
So as Agamemnon and Clytemnestra, Benny Safdie and Lupita Nyong'o.
What?
Come on.
Oh, that's good. That's
Come
A.
on. That's A
That's
right there,
A.
right? Come on.
That's an A.
Come on.
That's really fun.
I like that a lot.
Benny Safdie as Agamemnon. You
Yes.
know what? He's gonna murder.
Dude.
He's gonna be so good.
He's
he's
do
gonna
his-
have
he's
his,
gonna
like,
do his
weird
sort of like
face
sort of like
thing.
naive sort of
He's gonna do
thing.
his, like, he's
and
like,
then Clytemnestra's gonna
tired from
stab him in the
war.
back. Oh,
Sort of like
God.
strong
Yeah.
Benny.
Yes, strong and just
strong,
tired and like
Benny.
hopeful, like you've missed me, right, wife?
Oh, and then Lupita Nyong'o chokes him to death.
Oh, it's
That's
gonna be
how I
great.
wanna go.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be
Fucking
great. We're learning a lot in this cold
fucking
open. All right, now
fight hard in battle.
a couple actors who we don't have
Gets strangled by Lupita.
characters
Nyong'o.
for yet, but we know they're in this movie. So this is just based on the actor themselves. Okay.
Okay.
John Bernthal. John Bernthal.
A plus. A plus. A plus.
John Bernthal. Okay. John Leguizamo.
F.
You don't like Leguizamo in this?
F.
What is it? Is it you're not a Leguizamo fan? Or
I don't want any comedic relief in my Odyssey.
Got it. Okay, got it. So
None.
Leguizamo's gonna be too little.
He's
too
gonna say something a
wisecracky.
little funny,
Got it.
and I'm gonna go.
Got it, got
No,
it.
no, 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 no. We don't need that.
Mia Goth. Mia Goth is in the Odyssey. What do you think about that? I know you're on record as not being the world's biggest Mia Goth fan.
Mia Goth is one of the worst actors alive, and I think this is gonna be an A.
Wow.
Bec-
Explain.
Look, just because Mia isn't my favorite actor doesn't mean she doesn't have some sort of like she has an X factor. She's like all X factor.
Mhm.
It's like where's like the technique? She's 100% X factor. I just trust Nolan will plug her in the right spot to have her succeed. I'm gonna go with A because like Goth is a tool that like not everybody can wield appropriately. You know.
Yeah.
You know,
I like
but
that.
Nolan's gonna pull
Okay.
the sword out of the stone.
I'm thinking Siren maybe.
That's what I'm thinking. Some sort of
Yeah.
like
Something that is very vibe
beguiling
dependent.
witch.
Yes,
yeah, right.
like we want only vibes out of Mia.
Yeah.
You know what? All those lines that you are going to give to Zendaya to make up for Dune, let's take those away from Mia. Let's just go pure vibes with Mia.
Just her like screaming.
If she did stare at me from the coastline of an island I was passing by, I would say,
Nope.
I think that woman's going to kill me, and I cannot avoid sailing over to
He
her.
is a siren.
She is a siren.
Because you're like,
yeah.
oh, there's
yeah.
Mia Goth. Whoa, yeah, I'll sail over to her. And then when you get there, she's like, hi, Dolly. I'm like, Jesus, what the fuck? Next.
Elliot Page.
C. Too thin. Too thin.
Okay.
Is
okay.
Like I don't know, like Elliot Page is like Telemachus. You're like, okay, I guess the older son. Like Elliot Page.
Well, we
is
don't
just,
know what Elliot Page is being cast as.
I know that's why I'm just having trouble. I'm running through all the characters. Like John Bernthal's like, okay, he's gonna be rowing a boat or something.
These
you know what I
characters
mean?
have been
Elliot Page,
devastated and
thin,
depleted
thin.
by war, though.
Next.
All right. Robert Pattinson.
You know what? I'm gonna give this the odd B for a Pattinson casting
yeah,
because
yeah.
now it's like, what? We're too deep in the list. Now it's gonna if this is gonna turn into a cameo fest, I'm gonna start raising my eyebrows. Next,
I'll give you one more. Okay, let's go out on a big one here.
give me a good. I want like a who else is in this movie that I'm gonna go? Oh my god.
Samantha Morton. I thought that was gonna get you.
Oh,
that was gonna get you.
yeah, we're gonna go with the B.
Remember Samantha Morton from like Morvern Caller and
Sure.
movies like that? Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
You're gonna
no,
give her
B.
a B. Okay,
B.
a solid B. Okay.
That's good.
Um,
B's good.
I don't have any other really
All
good
right, well,
ones
look,
on here.
well, look, we're gonna We can't wait for the film. I was too many people in it,
Yeah,
though. I'm
that's-
getting nervous. It's too many people.
It's a big story. There's a lot of people that have to be in this story.
I like my side characters Bernthal-esque instead of Pattinson-esque, but I'm going to trust in God, God being Nolan, and I'm sure he knows what he's doing.
Hey, Nolan, I want you to do, because you have such a big cast, you have so many characters. I want to see some Josh Safdie casting. I want to see like I don't know, put
Anthony Anderson.
yeah,
as
put like
Telemachus.
Miss Rachel in this.
Yeah,
You know,
Miss
like put Miss
Rachel,
Rachel
Anthony
in your
Anderson.
Odyssey.
That's awesome.
But like, no, I don't even want non-actors. Like,
Yeah,
pick
Kai
like
Cenat.
like yes, put Kai Cenat, put Miss Rachel, get some influencers in here, and they don't have to be speaking roles or big characters. But let's like make the casting a little, because like why not have some fun with it? You don't need to cast like
Who's this? Ready? Barbie Ferrara.
Barbie Ferrara.
Get her in there. You
Get
know what I
Barbie
mean?
Ferrara
Stuff
in
like
here.
that. Is that her name?
Who's Barbie Ferrara?
She's in Entourage. She was in
Barbie
Nope.
Ferrara.
I think I'm saying her name
Okay.
80% correctly.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
You know,
Well,
just
that
like
sounds great.
Just like different people. You know,
That sounds great. A lot of different people.
Yeah.
Let's get like Kevin Durant in this movie.
Yeah,
Get like
that's
a
good.
athlete in there.
I like that. I like
Yeah,
that.
let's get Kevin Durant, Caitlin Clark, Miss Rachel, and
Callista
Kai Cenat.
Gingrich.
And who's that?
Callista Gingrich?
Newt
Newt Gingrich's wife. Callista Gingrich.
Honestly, if
She'd be
Callista Gingrich was ever going to be in a movie, I didn't realize how hard that name was to pronounce. I've never
It
said
is
it out loud.
Yeah, Callista.
Callista Gingrich.
I guess it is hard
That
to
is
say.
a real tongue twister. How does Newt say it?
I don't know.
I guess he doesn't find himself often saying his wife's full
yeah.
name.
I suppose so.
I don't know what kind of games those two play. Joe, are you ready to get this show started?
Born ready.
All right. Carson, roll that fanfare, please.
Welcome to Movies, Baby, the weekly show where we break down the hottest movie news, review the latest releases, shout out forgotten classics, and prophesy the future of Hollywood. I'm Joe Cilio, a.k.a. the Philly Movie Freak, and I'm joined by my co-host Brett Bellum, a.k.a. the Georgia Movie Dog.
Go Dogs! We're coming to you live from the San Fernando Valley, baby. We saw Black Bag this week. We saw Novocaine this week. We're going to review them. We also got your box office updates, your breaking Hollywood news, and in the second half of the show, we are going to be debuting a new segment. This is, of course, for Patreon subscribers only. It's called The Great Debate, Joe. The Great Debate. We're going to be applying the rules of high school debate to movie reviewing. Because we both saw The Electric State, a movie that apparently nobody likes.
It was a very poorly,
It's a very
critically
bad
received.
movie. Yeah,
It's a Netflix film.
That's
yeah,
right.
We'll be talking about it this episode. Yeah,
But we thought, like, instead of just like, what are we both just gonna pile on The Electric
we
State?
didn't like it, right?
You know what'd be fun is if like high school debate, where you have to prepare both sides of an argument and then you find out what you're arguing for about like a minute before you argue for it, and so you just have to focus on like the logic of your argument and not your personal beliefs and so on and so forth. We're going to do the same thing for Electric State. So one of us in the second half of this show is going to have to defend the Electric State. The other one is just going to have the pleasure of a good old-fashioned pile-on. But then the other person is going to have to defend it. And who knows? Who knows? Maybe they make the better argument. This really has nothing to do with the movie. We're taking the movie out of it.
It's going to be fun.
And it's about me versus Joe.
And we're going to fight.
A debate, a great debate for the ages about the movie Electric State. And that is only on Patreon, patreon.com/moviesbaby with 5 Ys. You can sign up for a 7-day free trial right now, see where it goes from there. But definitely sign up. Please sign up. And now, Joe, are you ready? Should we get this started?
Yeah.
This week on Movies Baby, Netflix spent $325 million on something called The Electric State. And everybody seems to universally agree that it's one of the biggest pieces of shit ever sold to the public as a feature film. But does that necessarily mean, just talking about the finances, does that necessarily mean that The Electric State is bad for Netflix? How does this whole streaming thing work? What's going on with streaming? We'll dig into the numbers and the state of streaming. But first, Joe, let's look at what was a dismal, dismal weekend at the box office and see if there's any hope on the horizon for movies. Carson, show me the money. And by the money, I, of course, mean the weekend box office returns, baby. Here we go. Here we go. Yikes, yikes, yikes. Joe, we don't have a single movie on this weekend's box office returns that made over $10 million. Nothing in double digits, not a single movie cracking 10 million. I went back and looked because we've been doing this show for a year now. Congratulations, by the way, on our 1-year anniversary. And over the course of the last year, we've been keeping a close eye on the old box office. And so my first thought was, well, I was like, I know this hasn't happened since we've been doing the show. It's at least been a year since this has happened. And sure enough, I had to go back to February 9th, 2024, over a year ago, which was the you'll, of course, even though we weren't doing the show, you'll, of course, remember the second weekend of Argyle and the first weekend of Lisa Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Was a huge week for Hollywood. JK, it was the last time that a single movie did not make over $10 million at the box office for a weekend. So this is, not surprisingly, the slowest weekend of 2025 so far. It was worse even than Super Bowl weekend. And specifically, we have Novocaine. We have a new number one, Novocaine, which made $8.7 million on an $18 million budget. So not a bad opening. But Paramount was hoping that this would open at around $10 million, so it underperformed a little bit. I think they probably based that on the fact that Companion, another Jack Quaid movie earlier this year, did $9.3 million, but it had the harder plot to market because it was trying to like conceal a twist and not give too much away. Whereas Novocaine is all just about simple premise, simple execution of a simple premise.
Yeah.
And so I think they were hoping to do 10. But 8.7 on an $18 million budget, I'm sure overall they're not going to sweat that. And also, when we were talking about Companion, a lot of that data was really suggesting that Sophie Thatcher was the big draw for that movie,
right.
more so than Jack Quaid.
And it was a horror movie, which of course has that, going for it.
Absolutely. But they'll live with 8.7. The bigger problem is that that's the only success story of the week, the only thing that could remotely be considered a success, because the Mickey 17 bomb continues. It had a 60% drop after a disappointing start, so it's only up to $90.5 million worldwide. That's on a $120 million production budget. Not good. It's going to have to get close to like $250 million at least to see profit. It's nowhere close to that right now, and so it's not surprising that they already announced a streaming date for Mickey 17. It's coming out on streaming later this month, so it's going to come out on streaming the same month that it was released in theaters. I'm sure that was not the ideal version of events. That was not the plan. And we'll talk more about streaming in a second here. And then Black Bag, this is disappointing because we're going to review Black Bag. Spoiler, we both really liked it. Soderbergh, second movie of the year with writer David Koepp, and this thing was not cheap. Unlike some of these recent Soderbergh movies, Presence, Kimmy, etc. This thing had a $50 million budget, had a lot of stars in it. It only brought in 7.5 opening weekend. That is not great. Universal isn't happy about that. It's a shame. It's a great movie. It doesn't feel like they marketed it that much. I mean, were you seeing a lot of Black Bag advertisements around?
No.
I mean, we're across from Universal, so they have a billboard out. But
Right.
Beyond that, I don't think there was a lot of Black Bag advertisements going on. Now there was one bigger, well, before I get to the big winner of the week, Joe, any takeaways, or is this just a sort of predictably blah?
No, just to add to what you're saying, the Looney Tunes movie underperformed, which is of note for Warner.
Yes, that's right.
Looney Tunes is a big IP. People were bemoaning this weekend that Warner quickly pulled the catalog off of their Max premium service, kind of as a Zaslav, the CEO of Warner, sort of saying, "See, I told you, Looney Tunes isn't being handled properly." And then the other thing I'd say is that Neon's The Monkey in its fourth week was able to add another 2.5 for a $35 million domestic till, which is just like a nice number 4 weeks in for The Monkey, Brett. But that's my takeaways.
So no slowing down the Osgood Perkins train, unfortunately.
Not even kind of.
Not yet.
I would get his
Not
new
yet.
movie into production. I'm sure they.
It's
have.
into production.
I'm sure
it's,
have.
It already has like a release date. It's coming out in
People are already
September.
going.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, what?
People are already lining up at the Vista for that Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can go ahead and get rid of the box office numbers. That's enough of those for now. Because there was one big winner of this week's sluggish box office that we haven't mentioned yet that I want to get to, Joe. And I'm not talking about the Electric State. We'll talk about the Electric State in a second. But before that, I want to talk about the big winner of this week's sluggish box office because it is none other none other than the live-action Snow White, baby. Live-action
What?
Snow White. That's right.
What do you mean?
This thing has not had good news in months, in years even, right? There's just been nothing but bad vibes around Snow White. But its luck might be changing because this weekend's box office was so bad, Joe. And that hurts everybody. Theater chains, the movie studios, production companies, the industry itself, right? Nobody wins from a sluggish box office. And so now the whole city, the whole industry can't wait for Snow White next weekend. Because Snow White, even though it might not do as much as these normal Disney live actions, it's still projected to do $50 million opening weekend. That's
awesome.
what the entire box office was this weekend. So Snow White is now projected to do what this weekend's total box office was with one movie. Everyone is like, oh God, give me Snow White. Snow White, please, please, please. We're so sorry. We're so sorry about all the things we said and how weird we were to Rachel Zegler for the last 3 years. Please come save us, Snow White. And Snow White's like, how do you like me now, right? Now you all come crawling back.
So is it projected to save the box office, Brett?
It's projected to be it's the only light at the end of the tunnel right now.
50 million opening would be tremendous.
Because after that, you have some other big question marks, Thunderbolts, etc.
Right.
And it's really not until
trailers.
Oh boy, right? We talked about not until May with that Mission Impossible Lilo and Stitch weekend is there really anything like a big light at the end of the tunnel. So this is like the theaters know they're gonna have to live off of the industry's gonna have to live off of Snow White for a month and a half. So everyone is freaking loving, kissing Snow White's ass all over the place now, saying, I'm sorry. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Right this way, Snow White. Roll out the red carpet for Snow White. I, for one, love it because I think you were already ahead of this on me. I'm catching up now. I think Snow White, and particularly Rachel Zegler, has been treated incredibly unfairly throughout this whole long extended production and marketing and promotion process. And if people don't know what we're talking about here, let's back up and give some context here, because Snow White, this movie has been under this perpetual cloud of bad publicity going back to 2021, and some of that bad publicity, and we're going to use a lot of quotation marks here, because some of that bad publicity is just like racist fans and sexist people online, racist, sexist Disney adults. Some of it is just like nothing. Some of it is just sort of sound and fury signifying nothing. And yet it's this very sort of, contemporary type of bad publicity where it's sort of like everywhere and nowhere. Everyone's like, what? I think Rachel Zegler said something bad, but I don't remember what it was. It's a lot of that. It's a lot of just vapors swirling around this movie, and it's given it this bad reputation. But when you break it down, it's kind of like, what the fuck are we all talking about? What's the problem with Snow White? So let's look at some specifics here. In June 2021, Rachel Zegler's casting was announced as Snow White, and then it immediately got this typical sort of racist, sexist backlash online. People saying Snow White can't be Latina.
Really?
Yeah, that was the big thing. Is
Okay.
people in their heads had that thought and then typed it into their computers.
Okay.
And then starting in January 2022. After Peter Dinklage's appearance on WTF, Mark Maron's podcast, there started to be this criticism about how the movie was handling the characters of the dwarves, and this is obviously a constant pitfall when you're doing a live-action movie, a live-action version of an old Disney movie, is if you watch Disney Plus and you see those warnings, there's stuff in these old Disney movies that hasn't aged particularly well, and so that's going to always be a challenge as to how you're presenting those elements, or if you're keeping them or getting rid of them, or how you're adapting them, and so on. And this was a kind of rocky road too, because there was those pictures released of the a bunch of people that weren't
the hipster dwarves.
Yes, right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
of all
a bunch
shapes
of
and
just
sizes,
yes,
non-dwarves
right.
types,
And it was like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, so it's like Snow White and the 7 hipster guys.
Right.
People were kind of confused about that.
And it's like, there's actors that could play the roles of the dwarves if it's handled correctly. Like the solution was not to keep the characters but then eliminate roles for people.
No, we're having a guy be sleepy.
Yeah. No. So that was a whole thing. And then also, of course, Gal Gadot's casting was announced as the evil queen, and Gal Gadot was in the IDF. Of course, that's compulsory, but people have figured out a way to get out of military service before. She was in the IDF, but she continues to be
She's very
pro Israel in the face of the genocide, and has not sort of softened on that position. So then Snow White found it, and meanwhile Rachel Zegler is tweeting out like pro-Palestine stuff. So then Snow White finds its way into the Israel-Palestine conversation. Then it finds its way into the sort of Trump conversation, because Zegler also tweeted out some really funny anti-Trump stuff about how she hopes that people who voted for Trump never know peace.
which is a funny PR move going into the new movie, but hey,
it's
hey, she's got her own personal brand to work on simultaneously as the Snow White release, and the Snow White release has been delayed long enough. She was just feeling it, and she let her rip. She's 24 years old. She lets it rip on Twitter, like,
and then
whatever.
This all came to a head with these reports that Disney was concerned about what Rachel would say next, and so they significantly sort of downsized the red carpet premiere for Snow White. They're not letting journalists talk to the actors. They're being very sort of cagey about it. There was even reports that they were sort of reducing the marketing spend in the week leading up to the premiere, all this stuff, as though Disney was like just, the cool, I think, was Disney just trying to get through this. And then I saw Joe, because I got to do a 180 on something, and I got to give you credit for being right on something, and I think I've been a little wrong on this, because I've never been a huge Rachel Zegler fan. I've mentioned that on the show before. And again, I don't want to be part of anybody's fucking racist, sexist narratives. That has obviously nothing to do with any of this. It's just, she just was not my, taste. Whatever you want to call it, sort of like overachieving theater kid kind of energy has never been my vibe. And it was just a matter of taste. But I'll tell you what, Joe. I saw they did do an actual red carpet for Snow White, even though I guess journalists weren't allowed to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw Rachel Zegler, after all of this shit that she's been through, get up on that red carpet and look like a fucking movie star, pose for those cameras, just fucking like, I'm Snow White, motherfucker. I was like, you know what?
You are Snow White.
I was wrong. Rachel
Fuck
Zegler.
yeah.
Rachel Zegler rules. I was wrong. I've been wrong this whole time, and I'm doing a 180. I'm very sorry for being wrong, but also, like, I can be wrong. It's fine. You can be wrong. And also, But
I'm glad you're here. Isn't it nice over here on Zegler Island?
It is.
Where we just understand that Zegler is a hardworking, very talented 24-year-old woman who's trying to make it in Hollywood, and sometimes she tweets this and that, but she's been thrown into the spotlight at a very young age. She was amazing in West Side Story, which is where I, fell in love with her talent. Like, I was like, wow, this woman is incredible. I love Spielberg's West Side Story. I think it's one of the best films of the century, and Zegler's amazing in it. And I'm glad that we are talking about the Snow White reclamation project a little bit. Some of the early reviews are coming in, and they're positive. I
love it. I'm so pro
I
Snow White
want her
right
to
now.
succeed.
Yes.
I want her to succeed because she is talented and because people hate her. And I don't want my 22-year-olds media trained, and I don't want my young artists muzzled. Like, young artists are supposed to have lots of opinions and lots of and say it. It's a beautiful thing. I hate it. I understand she's more than just a 22-year-old actor. She's the centerpiece of like a gigantic corporate like undertaking, right? And I understand that, but not like they treated her so bad, like she's persona non grata or something. But I do feel like generally the media is mean to Rachel Zegler, and people come for her because she's not, perfect at media games. And it's just
I love how she doesn't back
24.
down though, and she doesn't if anything, she doubles down.
Mm-hmm.
She really like stands her
They hate
ground
her
on
for
this
it.
stuff, and they hate her for it, and she just smiles
But I think
through it
it's-
all and looks great, and and always gives great performances. That was never really the issue.
I think young pop stars or movie stars speaking their mind and saying things, I think that's also, I think it's always been popular, and it continues to be popular. It's not like she's alone in being a little racy or a little like
and et cetera,
all
et cetera.
that like young people are supposed to stick their foot in it and supposed to make a mess. And she's a movie star, and I hope Snow White goes well this weekend.
I hope so too. And I even went back to like the big like when she like supposedly put her foot in her mouth on the red carpet at D23, which is Disney's big like sort of like gala, con every year. And I went back and read what she actually said, and it was cracking me up. It is so funny because I'm also like, oh, she had like a glass of champagne. It was just like talking.
Let him rip.
It's
What'd
like,
she say?
And I love it. This is this is what she said on the red carpet when an interviewer was like, "So, what's gonna be different about the live action Snow White?" So she's like, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. It's weird, so we didn't do that this time. We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story, just because we cast a guy in the movie, Andrew Burnap. Great dude. But it's not really about the love story at all, which is wonderful. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby. That is great. All right, I want to go on record, not just that, like, Disney, like, obviously the internet trolls are assholes and treated her horribly. Disney also has treated Rachel Zegler really unfairly by essentially throwing her under the bus at trying to muzzle her / throw her under the bus at any opportunity throughout this whole Snow White marketing campaign, culminating with this this report coming out about how reporters aren't allowed on the red carpet because who knows what Zegler is going to say. Missed opportunity. You have a charismatic, unique, outspoken person. This is a gift for any marketing campaign. We're in the age of viral marketing. How did you not see the potential? There is so much missed marketing potential around having this fucking dynamic new version of Snow White. I don't know why they didn't lean into it. I don't know why they are so just under the thumb of the Disney adults and the nerds. At the end of the day, these live action movies make so much fucking money. How much percentage of Disney of Mufasa's box office was Disney adults? There aren't that many Disney adults in the world. These movies can go big and go broad. They just need some narrative, some sort of hook. And Zegler was giving you a hook. We got a crazy Snow White. I don't know what the hook is. We got who knows what Snow White will say. That's fun. Why is everybody so fucking prudish and weird about everything these days? Jesus. This was a gift that you just that just was fucking water through your fingers. It just spilled out. You had no idea what you had there. Instead, you're just oh no, Rachel's gonna embarrass us. It's gonna embarrass Walt's reputation. It's y'all. She didn't have anything to do with the dwarves. That was all you. You're fucking up on your own. Zegler could have been your salvation for this movie, and instead you threw her under the bus.
She's a bit of a scapegoat for a lot of the problems with the movie. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I hope this movie makes a boatload of money. I hope it overperforms, and I love that everyone has to kiss this movie's ass now because of how bad the box office was this weekend, and really for the last couple weekends. Now, Joe, there is another movie that premiered this week that had a production budget of $320 million. But it doesn't show up anywhere in the box office top 10. How does that make any sense? Of course, I'm talking about Netflix's The Electric State, directed by the Russo brothers, who are best known as the directors of Avengers Endgame and Infinity War, 2 of the top 10 highest-grossing movies of all time. So even though the Russos have seen bigger budgets before, most directors have never been anywhere close to a budget like this. $320 million makes The Electric State, and if you're saying, what's The Electric State? I don't blame you. This was not marketed very widely outside of Netflix, but it does have the 13th biggest budget of all time. This is the 13th most expensive movie in history, and it is the most expensive streaming-only release by far. I went down to the top 60 most expensive movies of all time. No other streaming movies. This one this is the most expensive streaming movie by a mile. And although that number has neither been confirmed nor denied by Netflix, it is, when you watch it, it is not hard to believe this movie cost $320 million. The problem with it is not that it looks cheap. It looks you could say it looks bad, but it does not look cheap. It looks expensive, from the detailed CGI to this enormous ensemble cast to this jukebox soundtrack that cost a fortune on its own probably to license all those songs. This movie looked like they were trying to spend a lot of money. So Joe, when it comes to streaming, what does this number mean though, and how would Netflix gauge success on a budget this exorbitant? And this has to do a lot with sort of the distinctions between streaming and theatrical, because we don't want to make the mistake of sort of acting like the two, a theatrical budget is the same as a streaming budget. But give us some context here. What does this number, this impossibly big number, mean for Netflix, and how would they gauge if it's a successful use of money or not?
$320 million is a lot. But do you want to hear an actual big number? Do you know the amount of money Netflix is going to spend on content this year? I'll tell you. $18 billion. $320 million is not a ton of money when your global budget for content creation is $18 billion. Netflix has 300 million subscribers all over the world, and they make shows and movies for 50 different countries, 50 territories. They have added millions of people last quarter to their platform, and now they have $18 billion more dollars to look at this year and say, what are we going to spend it on? What has traditionally worked at Netflix won't surprise you. It is unscripted is popular, is big at Netflix. That's everything from Logan Paul fighting Mike Tyson or Jake Paul or whatever, like live events like that, as well as sort of true crime, Who Killed John Benet Ramsey. There's that kind of stuff. Other big sectors for them, of course, include scripted, and a big part of their business is, of course, movies, of which any Netflix executive would tell you, of all the studios, they are the most nominated at the Emmys, at the Oscars, at the Golden Globes, year after year after year.
Still don't have that Best Picture, though. Still waiting on that Best Picture win.
So I think what I'm driving at is, it's a great question. What does a loss look like for Netflix? Well, how does Netflix assess value? Netflix is looking for engagement metrics, like time retained on the platform, as sort of a analytic that determines whether or not people subscribe. So anyway, subscriptions are up, profit is up. Netflix won the streaming wars without a doubt. They wanted to disrupt television. They disrupted it forever, and they became the greatest, biggest television company in the world. So now they're licensing podcasts on their platform and paying millions of dollars to have people like Pat McAfee on ESPN sort of scenario. They've signed big deals with Miss Rachel. So they're going into the creator economy and they're rummaging around. Amazon had Mr. Beast's show that they put on their platform. So they're going into the creator economy and they're rummaging around. So what I'm saying is, whether they're pulling from the creator economy, Miss Rachel, whether they're going to the movie studios like Agbo, the Russo brothers production company, and working with them, or working on television shows, Netflix is doing it all, and they're doing it all at a humongous and very successful rate. So in isolation, what do I think the electric state is doing here? Well, first of all, like you mentioned, Brett, streaming finances are a little different than regular movies. Long story short, on a regular movie production, people participate in the back end, aka you're deferring a certain amount of payment because you're all betting on yourself to get awarded sort of equity on the project, and when it makes money, you get points on the back end. But at streaming services, everything is up front, which is very, very valuable to artists. Duh. So why is the number 320? It's because you had to pay Chris Pratt not 10 in points, you had to give him 60. Millie Bobby Brown, it's not, I don't know what these people cost, but you have to pay all that money up front.
And you also have to, with the theatrical release, you have to give a large percentage of the gross revenue to the theaters.
That's exactly.
Whereas Netflix does not have to give a large. So with a theatrical release, you have to make, it used to be 2 times, you really have to make 2.5 times your production budget to see profit with a theatrical release. With a streaming release, they don't, however they sort of evaluate how much money they've made, they don't have to make as much money as a theatrical release has to make in order to see profit. And for comparison, I saw somebody saying that if this was at a studio, it would have been a little under $200 million probably.
Right. Because of the way that's all set.
Still a lot of money.
Still a lot of money. Still wouldn't say it if that was a theatrical model. Still wouldn't say it for many other studios. I don't even know if I'd say it for Netflix. What I'm saying is Netflix will survive. It doesn't really matter. In the past 2 or 3 years, they've had an emphasis on big event pictures, a la Electric State, with just huge movies like The Gray Man. Is that the other Russo brother movie?
Yes.
Gray Man.
Yeah,
they have
Red
these
Notice with Gal Gadot.
They put out these exactly. They put out these huge movies, and you know what? They get eyeballs, Brett.
Red Notice had 231 million views according to Netflix measurements.
Okay, so look, Netflix is insanely
That's
smart.
their most popular movie ever, by the way.
They will, and they're making a sequel. Oh, not Red Notice. Sorry, they're making a Gray Man sequel.
Are they really?
Yes.
Wow.
So here's
They're really in the Russo brothers.
Well, here's
business.
Here's some reasons maybe why. Number one, the Russo brothers made 2 of the most highest grossing movies of all time. Yes, they were Marvel movies, but whatever, they made them. But I think more importantly is sort of Agbo's ambitions in the AI space.
And that's the Russo brothers production company,
yes.
Agbo. Yeah.
So after they make Doomsday and Secret War,
the new Avengers movies,
those are,
yep.
Then what the Russo brothers are also doing parallel with that is developing AI tools at their production company Agbo, and they have tons of funding and filming for that. I think that it's good business to keep the Russo brothers in the mix for Netflix. They make huge event pictures, and they are technically and infrastructurally like very developed at Agbo, and all of their services they have in Atlanta and all the things that they can do there. And I think they're just like, and by the way, like the Electric State, like stepping back for a second and divorcing yourself from our hatred of the Russo brothers. It's just like, good IP, Russo brothers, 300 million, let's give it a whirl.
It's
like
Netflix.
Who gives a shit?
They are in too
give it a
big.
whirl.
They might be in too big to fail territory where the numbers just stop. They just need to keep doing big things.
Here's what I'll say.
They just need scale and scope.
Maybe. Or they might see the Electric State numbers come back and they might say, never mind, we're doing Rebel Ridges. Give me 70 million action movies because it's getting the same number of eyeballs. Or they might say, oh, wait, this worked really well because of A, B, and C. But you know what? They're definitely they're going to assess it and learn from it and move on, and maybe next year we'll get less gigantic ass movies.
And the Russo brothers themselves, I read this really interesting Hollywood Reporter profile with the Russo brothers where they kind of admitted the same thing, that the Electric State was really just a sort of guinea pig to sort of gauge what direction they should go in next. And if anything, they probably overspent on it, so there would be like a clean experiment. What happens when we spend an insane amount of money on a movie? What happens? It's not like it won't really matter one way or the other for this one movie, but in order to chart our next 5 to 10 to 15 years, let's do a really big one and just see what happens, and then we'll know moving forward. They basically admitted that was the point of the Electric State. It was a very, very expensive guinea pig. Yeah. And I do think that even though this is not going to sink Netflix, and even if they're able to sort of somehow make the numbers make sense on paper for the next board meeting, I don't think they're going to keep doing this. I think this will be probably the beginning of the end of these type of expenditures for them, because like Joe said, and people have been saying online, when you break the numbers down, this budget is like 53 Anoras, right? They could have made 53 Anoras. Anora this year's Best Picture winner cost $6 million. That's 53 movies they could have made at that scale or at that size. Instead, they made this one movie.
But Netflix would say, "Yeah, bet we made thousands of movies this year."
Exactly.
Fucker. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Thanks for the 50 more Anoras. I literally did it. This year we made thousands of movies in 50 territories. So Netflix people can they always have like a backup comment,
right?
Because they're so ubiquitous,
right?
So
the comment is like, well, we did make,
like, but
right.
like the problem with Netflix right now is like they won their king and it did work. So I'm gonna be annoying right now. You're gonna say like
no.
dings against them.
I think the response is like we did make 53 Anoras and we made Electric State.
That's what they would say.
You're saying.
That's what they would say.
But the bigger problem for them, I think, is the just terrible piss poor quality of the Electric State as a movie. I think is a problem for them. This movie is just getting like reviled across the board. I don't give a shit about the Razzies, but this has like Razzies written all over it. This is just a big stinking bad movie is the kind of consensus from critics about it, and from viewers as well, and audience members, and people who love the graphic novel. I think are most pissed off out of anyone because this apparently doesn't remotely resemble the graphic novel, or definitely doesn't resemble the spirit of it. And I think this does pose a problem for Netflix, because when you have declining quality and increasing costs, and they have had declining quality, I think, for the most part in their original movies. If you think of Gray Man, Red Notice, Electric
Amelia
State,
Perez.
Sure, but that's not a movie. That's a movie they bought. But like in-house paying for producing, right? Like they really have a quality problem right now, and on top of that, they have increasing subscription prices, and so that's not a business model. That's a developing bubble. When you have increasing costs, increasing prices on your product, and declining quality of that product, that's what creates a bubble. That's when you get real discontent in your customer base.
No doubt that $25.99 a month price is expensive, but they're going to pair it with a $7.99 ad tier, which is going to increase their revenues tremendously over the next 5 years. Preposterously so. I think it's illegal for me to say this, and don't take my advice, but bye.
I dare Netflix to try something in terms of their subscription tiers. In addition to this ad tier thing, I want you to create 2 tiers, Netflix. One where you get everything that Netflix offers. You get the back catalog of all the movies they've acquired and have the rights to, and you get all the Netflix originals. You get Stranger Things, you get Electric State, etc. Then offer a plan where you only get access to all the sort of back catalog of movies and stuff, and you don't get access to the Netflix originals. You don't get access to Stranger Things. You don't get access to the Electric State or Gray Man or any of these movies, any of these Russo Brothers movies. I would sign up for that cheaper plan in a heartbeat. I don't want to be on the. I like Netflix for all the weird sort of documentaries and movies that it's compiled. I like looking through the old Netflix catalog every now and again, but I don't want to be paying for the Stranger Things budget and the Electric State budget. I don't give a shit about these movies and shows. They suck. So do 2 subscription plans. Also, do this after the last season of Stranger Things comes out. Then you'll have a real clean experiment for where you stand moving forward, and see how many people sign up for the tier without the Netflix originals. And then you'll know where people stand on your product. Are they there just because you are too big to fail and you're ubiquitous and you have this massive catalog? Or are they dying for the next Russo Brothers movie to come out on the Netflix platform?
I like your plan. I do think they know what works and what doesn't work. And I think the reason that they're not splitting it the way you had is the value of a back catalog is changing. And I think that what you said might not happen necessarily, but you will see a lot more Netflix licensing out their original content to other platforms and streamers. 5 of the 10 most popular movies on Netflix were from other studios, from Warner Brothers and from Universal. And that does suggest that what Brett's saying is true. When these theatrically distributed products come in from other studios, they come in after marketing, after theatrical. People know about these movies and they watch them on Netflix. Netflix doesn't do any of these marketing things. None of us have heard of the Electric State. So those other off-channel titles have value on the Netflix platform, but likewise, Netflix is going to start doing something because what Brett, what you're saying, like that the catalog isn't worth that. And they can make a lot more money on the ads. Like all of a sudden taking all of Netflix and then adding mid-rolls, like that's a great idea. Bye. But the back catalog is invaluable. Like the reason they're not doing your thing is because it is all garbage. It's all trash. You can make more money giving it to like TV, just like sell our bullshit TV to like bullshit other TV, sell our movies to other streamers that need content like that, and get your stuff out in the ecosystem. You're going to see a lot more of that. The bundling thing, that's not how they're going to play it, obviously.
I want to say 2 things about the Russo brothers, and then we'll move on to our reviews. Because I read a lot about the Russo brothers this week. I was trying to get my mind around these guys.
Who are these guys?
Who have made so much money. Well, first of all, they've made a lot of money. Do you also know how much money they've been given to make their movies? I went back and added up their budgets.
That's a good question.
This is the last 6 movies. So this is like starting with the Captain America, Winter Soldier, which was their first foray. Because they started out on like Community and Arrested Development. They were like almost like showrunner levels on Arrested Development and Community. They were like part of like like
the greatest comedies,
good,
right?
The last good wave of television comedy,
cool.
At least, yeah. But then they did the Winter Soldier, and then they were kind of like Marvel company men after that. So their last 6 movies and 1 TV show they did, they had collective budgets of $2 billion. They've been given $2 billion just to make their movies and TV shows. And so I was trying to figure out like who are these guys? How did they get so much credibility, and how did they, like, of course they made Endgame and Infinity War, but at that point, like, that's like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yeah, it's, a fucking Milkshake could have directed those movies. Like it's almost like they're like predetermined.
But a Milkshake might push back, and the Russo brothers say yes.
Okay, here's the quote, Joe. You're gonna love. I think you're gonna love this quote. Okay, because I found this like buried deep in a fucking profile somewhere from like a couple years ago, and I was like, this explains the Russo brothers. This quote is from Robert Downey Jr. Okay, he says, speaking of the Russo brothers, they're like family now.
Nice.
I've driven out to the North Fork of Long Island to visit Anthony and Anne. That's Anthony Russo's wife. I've driven out to Long Island to visit Anthony and Anne, and will probably do so again this summer. He also counts Joe and his wife, Joe Russo, and his wife, Alicia, as close friends with him and his wife, Susan.
And there it is.
That's what it is.
That's
all
what
it
ever is. Guys.
That's what it is.
It's all
Robert Downey Jr. likes to drive out to Long Island and have dinners with the Russos.
Yeah, the Russos are good at this.
That's why they've gotten $2 billion.
Why do you at home want to work with somebody? You know what I mean? Because they're easy to work with and they get the job done and they make a lot of money for you.
But these guys, Marvel though, they are MCU company men. I don't know why Netflix is trying to turn them into like their Christopher Nolan. I do not think it's
they're not. They're trying to turn them into their Russo brothers, maybe, or they're just having them around so they can go to Long Island and they can like,
They want to go to the North Fork
They
too.
want to go to the
Sarandos,
North Fork.
Everybody wants to go to the Russo's
Well,
pad
it's
out
lovely.
of the North Fork.
It's gorgeous. And for Sarandos, maybe an invite to that North Fork for a night. That's worth $300.
What about Reed Hastings? You think Reed's getting that invite?
Never.
Nah, Reed's
Never.
No. Reed,
No,
nobody
Reed's
likes that.
bad boy.
Nobody likes Reed owns too much equity to to
Reed-
be ignored. But he's too obnoxious to be invited
He
as
doesn't-
well.
he doesn't
Yeah,
go.
he finds himself stuck in the middle. Ted though, Ted's getting that invite.
Ted goes.
Ted's bringing a bottle of wine that will blow your mind.
Yeah, man.
It's like from Charlemagne's wine or something. Now, enough of the money. Let's talk movies, baby. That's why we're here. This week on Movies, baby, we're reviewing the new releases Black Bag, directed by Steven Soderbergh and written by David Koepp, and Novocaine, starring Jack Quaid. And I tell you what, Joe, nobody has been busier so far this year than these three guys, Jack Quaid, Steven Soderbergh, and David Koepp. Quaid has already starred in Companion and Novocaine. Soderbergh and Koepp have already put out 2 movies, Presents and Black Bag. It's not even April. It's barely mid-March.
They're on fire,
The
Brett.
busiest, the hardest working men in entertainment, Jack Quaid,
working.
Steven Soderbergh, and David Koepp. And while we do try to avoid any major plot spoilers when we review new movies, it is impossible to give an honest review of these stinking movies without talking about them in their entirety. And so for reviewing a movie that you don't want spoiled, not even in the least, and look, we're not going to tell you who the bad guy in Black Bag is, right? We're not going to give major spoilers. But if you don't want these things spoiled in the least, then, put us on mute or skip ahead. Just keep an eye on the show notes or the video, and it'll tell you, when we're doing what. All right, let's talk about Novocaine first, since it won the box office, Joe. Novocaine is a 2025 American action comedy film directed by Dan Burke and Robert Olson, written by Lars Jacobson. It stars, of course, Jack Quaid, also Amber Midthunder, Ray Nicholson, Jack Nicholson's son, Betty Gabriel, and Jacob Batalon. And the plot follows a guy named Nathan Kane, Jack Quaid, who's a bank employee. He's an assistant manager who has an inability to feel pain. It's a genetic disorder. He can't feel pain. And then his bank gets robbed, and he decides to go out, and his girlfriend gets taken hostage, and he has to go save her and save the day. That's Novocaine. And he uses his inability to feel pain as his weapon, really, against these bad guys, these bank robbers. It was released by Paramount Pictures, and we're going to tell you what we think. Joe, what did you think of Novocaine?
Brett, I like Novocaine. I think that was the premise, and then they delivered. He was a guy who gets hurt a lot, and he uses that, what was once his weakness, as now his strength. And I think that he uses it to really funny effects. My theater was loving it. I thought Jack Quaid was really good in this one. I think he took a step up from Companion even. I think he was a fun, right cast in this. He was he does his thing where he's I'm a bit of a loser, but then he can sexy it up. And he was funny and charming in the right amounts. I love that one shot where he's because he's got these badass tattoos all over his body. There's
a fun reveal.
There's
That's a fun
one
reveal.
shot where it's he's getting out of bed and just looks so fucking cool. I was like, Jesus, Jack.
He looks like Ryan Gosling in The Place
Yeah,
Beyond the
yes,
Pines.
he does. Yeah, I was like, whoa.
When he takes his shirt off, you're like, whoa, what the fuck?
It was funny because they've tried to make sure he's a loser for 30 minutes,
Yeah.
and he takes his shirt off, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess you're the opposite. You're a cool guy. Anyway, so I liked that.
Yes.
And I liked. So he has a love interest in this movie, Amber Midthunder.
Yes.
Also in 2 movies this quarter. She was in Opus. So
She was
shout
in
out
Opus.
to Amber.
She was in Opus. And you might know her from Prey, the Predator
Yeah.
prequel that she was in.
I love that.
Joe, can we talk about this for a second? I thought my favorite part of the movie was her. I thought she was fucking
Novocaine?
fantastic.
Well,
yes.
that's what exactly.
Yeah,
I'm
right?
with
All
you,
right,
dude.
Let's go, baby.
Dude, here's what I was
Amber
about to say.
Midthunder stand
That's what
up,
I was-
okay? Amber Midthunder fan club in session.
So Jack is super charming, and the movie is good enough. It satisfies its promise of this guy's going to experience a lot of pain and then use it to his advantage, and he does that. But I think the movie works really because they spend 20-30 minutes up top really making you emotionally invested in this relationship, which is Amber is interested in Novocaine, and Jack's Novocaine character is interested in Amber, and they have a very effective love story followed by a very sexy love story. They have a sexy little moment where they reveal their pain to each other, and it's very very sexy and effective. And I was like, wow, you know what? this character, Nathan Kane, would go to these extreme ends based off everything that you told me in order to save this woman. Like, they did a good job setting it up. It's like, this guy's a loser who his parents wouldn't even let him eat pie. She opened up worlds to this man. He can eat pie now, and he's going to do anything to save her. Like, it tracked
Joe,
emotionally.
I'm so glad you said that, because I thought the exact same thing. I thought ultimately this is an all right movie with a really good Act 1.
I agree.
I was not expecting, because
I really liked it.
All the sort of, violent action comedy scenes from the trailer, that's all sort of after the bank robbery. And I kind of thought we were going to like start with the bank robbery more or less, or like, page 10 or something.
It was fine because I know what the movie
fully fleshed out Act 1 where Joe is absolutely right. Like, I feel for this guy and his condition. It's not like they don't play as a joke first. They play it as like a real thing. And then Amber Midthunder's fantastic, and their dynamic was believable and credible, and like they're revealing layers to the characters. I was like, Novocaine? Where'd this Act 1 come from? I was like a thoughtful little like indie Act 1.
I was like almost disappointed when the bank robbery happened.
Truly.
I was like, okay, I get it. Like, I have to now watch this man suffer pain and then not feel it or whatever. But I wish I didn't have to, because I was really enjoying their dynamic.
Yeah, the movie gets in the way of the movie.
It really does.
Yeah.
Because the movie was great until the movie started.
That's it.
It really was.
That's it.
Yeah.
It was like a stolen summer or something.
It was
like
good.
It was like what is this? What is this little lost in time Act 1 that like is just gonna get just clobbered to smithereens when the plot sort of kicks in.
But it does help in Act 3. Spoiler.
It
does. When she decides to that.
Don't give away the twist. Don't give away the twist.
No, I'm just like,
there's a fun twist.
Oh yeah, but whatever. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's important setup because it helps the rest of the movie.
It very
it really
important.
does.
You need that connective tissue. But I love that the movie even like gave a shit to do that, because a lot of times movies will just be like, fuck them, we're just gonna do what we want to do. We're just gonna do the action.
Just do John Wick.
But like, you really understand all the character beats because they take the time in Act 1 to establish the dynamics.
This movie was surprising. I just thought it was like, it's certainly not the world's most like interesting or thematically revelatory film, but for a movie called Novocaine where Nathan Kane can't feel pain. Pretty good. No, I give this bad boy 3 stars because it was good. And you know why it's getting 3 stars is also, it was really fun for me. Jack Quaid in certain frames and shots, he looked just like his dad.
Yeah. What do you think? Well, speaking of, what do you think about Ray Nicholson?
Well, he looks a lot like his dad, too.
Did you like him, though? Did you like the Ray Nicholson performance? Ray Nicholson, Jack Nicholson's son, is like the big bad guy.
I actually did.
Yeah.
I thought he was good.
I thought
it was like a little extra, but it wasn't like bad extra. It was just like he was going for it and whatever. Yeah.
And there's a lot of fun gore. The gore was a little went harder than I thought it was going to, and that was fun.
Yeah, which is definitely fun.
But it's still like comedy gore.
Just like,
and
get back to Amber
was going
and
like,
Jack.
ew, oh my god! But everyone was like doing big reactions.
Oh, but
to the
I
gore.
did go ew a lot because there were some gross ones, and even I would have to go.
Even this lover of the Terrifier movies had to go ooh.
Yeah, it was all right. 3
I
stars.
also don't want to 3 stars for Joe, which means it's good according to our scale. I also don't want to like overrate this movie because it does kind of like. It just sort of devolves into the most basic version of itself by the end, and there's a lot of just like, that character wouldn't do that, but I understand why you need it for the plot. There's a lot of that, and so it definitely doesn't pay off the promise of Act 1 for me, but ultimately for me, it was all right. It was all right. I give it 2.5 stars. It was all right.
There you go.
There you go. Fun, like, also, 2.5 stars, all right, but like, I would say go see this in theaters if you want to go see a movie. Like, I would definitely say, like, if you're looking for a little fun movie to see this week, go see Novocaine. It was a fun theatrical experience.
It's not the worst movie you could see.
No. You not 1 second of this movie will you go like, wait, what happened? You won't ask that question once in this movie. You'll be riding this train start to finish. You'll understand everything. All right. Let's talk about Joe. Holy shit! How good was Black Bag? Oh, when I got out, I saw your Letterboxd review, and I was like, yes, thank you. Somebody gets it. Black Bag is a.
You read my review?
I did. I did. I just saw the stars, but I didn't read the review because I didn't want to get too I didn't want to get too affected. Okay, but I saw that we had the same star review.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
It is a spy thriller from Steven Soderbergh, written by David Koepp, stars Cate Blanchett, Michael Fassbender, Marissa Abela from Industry, and that terrible Amy Winehouse biopic. Tom Burke, Naomi Harris, Reggie Jean Page, and Pierce Brosnan, baby. Pierce.
That's what I'm going to talk about.
All right, you talk about Pierce.
That's what I'm going to talk
about. A couple other things. Let me start off, if you don't mind. Because, and if you don't know what this movie's about, it's a classic spy setup. Fassbender is like the best spy at MI6, and he has to find a mole in the agency, and it might be his wife, or it might be one of 4 other people who are also in relationships with each other. So, Joe, Black Bag is a movie to me that was about relationships. The spy thing, like a lot of spy movies, is there for genre and for structure, but Koepp ultimately wanted to write a movie about relationships and modern relationships. But the relationship to me that's most important in this movie is the one between Soderbergh and Koepp, because like we said, these guys have now produced 2 stellar collaborations in 2025. It's not even April yet. We both really liked Presence. I think we gave it 3.5 stars for really good. I liked Black Bag even better. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I gave it 4 stars. I think this movie is great. And the secret to the success between the Soderbergh-Koepp collaboration is that these guys really know when to lead and when to follow. Who's going to be the virtuoso in this movie, and who is going to be the sort of complimentary craftsman who is sort of setting the stage for their buddy to take center stage. And in Presence, it was all about Soderbergh's camera. It was about, the camera is the ghost. That's the big trick of Presence. And it's all about Soderbergh swooping and diving and moving that camera around and implying the sort of the personality of the ghost just by how he is moving the camera around. And then Koepp, because a lot of his dialogue is being caught sort of in the middle of a scene, and you're coming into a room and people are talking and then you leave before they're done, Koepp in Presence isn't trying to draw your focus to the script. He is trying to have the script complement what Soderbergh is doing, and is keeping the script very naturalistic, almost sort of mundane at times in order to establish a sort of sense of realism and normalcy so that Soderbergh can do all his weird, wacky stuff with the camera. But then in Black Bag, baby, oh my God, Koepp said, "My movie! Everybody to the back. This is my movie. My movie. I'm in charge. I am driving this train," because holy shit, this script is fantastic. This is like a Michael Clayton script. This is like a just written script. And oh my God, when a genre movie just gets the fuck written out of it, holy shit, there is like few pleasures better in movies. And this script is just written, and these actors are fucking making a meal of this dialogue. Oh my God, it is so good. And I really hope that, I know this is a March movie in the doldrums. I really hope we don't forget about this movie come award season. I know you and I will not forget about it for our awards, but I cannot imagine there's going to be 5 better screenplays this year than Koepp's screenplay for Black Bag. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. This to me is...
It is so good. It's obviously Jean Le Carré sort of like inspired, and you know what? It does that to a great degree.
Absolutely,
like
yes.
It's like a love letter to the Carré stuff, but it's also its own thing and its own sort of sophisticated highbrow thing. But the script would read like a novel. Like it is like deep and exciting espionage stuff.
And he is doing his, to me, he does such a good job with the relationship stuff, because we have these 3 sort of interconnected couples that all work at MI6, and he is doing some like, it's almost like his Closer, or his like Your Friends and Neighbors, if you've ever seen that Neil LaBute movie. It's his like vicious dissection of modern relationships. And there's this scene where Fassbender like drugs all the couples at the table with like a truth serum, and they just have the most like savage fucking dinner party where they're just telling all their secrets and all their relationship dynamics, and they're just like spilling it out because they can't help but tell the truth. And I was like, I'm fucking watching Closer. This fucking rocks. This is so good. And I ultimately think the premise of the movie, kind of the theme of the movie, is the way that the kind of conditions of modern life and the surveillance state and all this stuff, it creates relationships that are either like intensely maniacally loyal or like intensely maniacally like disloyal. He's working with those 2 types of relationships, which is perfect for a spy movie, because then it's up to you to decide which one is which, who is loyal to each other and who is disloyal to each other. But really, I think it's more about like the relationships themselves, and all the sort of Le Carré spy stuff is there as this perfect sort of like genre architecture, so he can do what he really wants to do, which is like write his version of Closer, Your Friends and Neighbors, just get vicious with modern relationships. I really like Black Bag. 4 stars, great.
Black Bag was certainly great, and I just it had a lot of great performances. Fassbinder's back in his I'm a robot thing. Blanchett's back in my like I'm a hot robot thing. But I have to talk about Brosnan.
Please.
Because you know who
God.
Do you know who wasn't a robot? and I say robot lovingly, but I thought that those two, Blanchett and
They're great.
Fassbender, were awesome. Brosnan, he steals the show. If you have Black Bag on your short list for best screenplays, I, without a doubt, have Brosnan on my short list for best supporting actor, because that guy can raise an eyebrow with the power of 1,000 suns. And that motherfucker, wears a suit.
Yeah.
Okay. This costume designer, call this person in. I need to talk to them and bring Brosnan too. He has the perfect suit on. So he plays like
some like
the head of
motherfucker.
he's like the head of the CIA or whatever. No one knows, whatever. His suit is like a little big in the shoulders and sort of like it's as if he like lost a little weight in the suit, so it's sort of just a slightly big on his frame, but he's wearing the fuck out of it, so he looks so hot and so cool and scary wearing these things. He's so good in it. He's doing like barely any acting. He's just kind of like talking, raising some eyebrows, and he's so intense and good. Brosnan's, he's my Banderas and Baby Girl.
Yes.
I love you in this, Pierce Brosnan. You're my favorite part. I wanted to stand up after every scene of yours. You are of course you're in charge of the agency. You are the spy. You're my spy. You're my Bond. You're my spy. I love you, Pierce Brosnan.
It's been
I love you,
Banderas and
Pierce
Baby Girl.
Brosnan.
It is this year's Banderas and Baby
Come
Girl
on.
so far. I also want to give a shout out to Tom Burke. I thought this guy
He
was
was on
fucking
fire.
fantastic. And you know what else he was really good in was Furiosa last year. Remember?
Oh yeah, he was
like,
so cool.
Yeah,
he's
he
like
was-
her friend.
Dude, I am all about Tom Burke. I think this guy is a megawatt talent.
He was
I hope he
fucking-
gets some really good stuff.
He was really good.
He's
in
really,
Black
really
Bag.
good. I mean, everybody was good. Brosnan and
He
Burke
has the
were
hardest
like my
part.
breakouts. He does have the
Burke
hardest
has the
part.
hardest part because
Yes.
he loses it and flies off the handle, but then has to
Yes.
go back to work, and he makes it all seem like that's a guy. You know what I mean?
I believe it all.
I was like, oh, that's a
Yes.
guy.
I believe it
Even
all.
though he was
Yeah.
acting crazy, like
Yes.
that's what crazy
Yes.
guys are like sometimes. Yep,
Great movie. Is this your favorite movie of the year so far that you've seen?
without a doubt.
Yeah, I think my only 4 stars are this and One of Them Days. But this is definitely one or two best movies I've seen so far this year.
This is the best movie I've seen this year, without a doubt.
Yeah. Now that's until next week though, baby, because we got 2 heavy hitters coming down the pipeline next week, Joe. This is. For us, this is like Barbenheimer. This is quite
huge.
oh my god.
And I think the All Movies Babies listener,
Yes.
it is.
If you're like
Barbenheimer.
us, we got another Barbenheimer coming up. I don't know. We have to come up with a name.
Snow Knights.
Snow Knights. Snow Knight. Okay, baby, because we've got Disney's live action Snow White, which now suddenly the industry can't wait for after pillaring it in various ways over the last years. Now they can't wait for Snow White because they need some money. And then we also have we haven't even talked about the Alto Knights yet. All right, so what's happening here is Robert De Niro is playing 2 roles in a big sort of expensive mob movie that's directed by Barry Levinson. How did this get green light in the year 2025?
I don't
Joe?
know.
I do not.
I don't know, but let's go.
Not know, but I cannot wait.
There's so much money out there, like
There
someone
really
wants.
is.
Someone's
There
like
really
two
is.
Robert De Niro's.
Yes.
Let's go.
Some disgraced,
Me.
some disgraced European aristocrat really had to get rid of $50 million fast.
Well, look at Warner Brothers. I think it was
This
Warner
is
Brothers.
Warner Brothers. Is this part of your tour strategy? The guy is Barry Levinson. Is not
never mention
doesn't
him.
scream up and
I
coming
love
a
that.
tour. Okay, all right.
All right, we'll see you there.
All right,
Snow
Snow White
Knights.
and all Snow Whites. We cannot wait. We'll see you there, and then hang out because we're gonna be back in 5 minutes with the great debate where
huge.
Joe and I during the break we will draw straws. One of us will have to defend the electric state, and then one of us will have I assume the easier task of
Ripping it to
criticizing the electric state. But it's just about the argument. It's about the logic, and you have to decide. We'll put up a poll on Patreon to decide who wins. And speaking of that, please sign up at patreon.com/moviesbaby with 5 Ys. That's where all the good stuff is, and that's where you can see our full show, including our great debate about the electric state coming your way in just 5 minutes. We'll see you there. Bye.